A black coach defends his little players from ICE agents. You got to see this. Here it is.
I just saw these ICE officers walking, and I saw them approaching my kids, and I just went over and I just heard them stating, "Where you from? Where your parents from?" And I just stepped in and said, "This is very inappropriate to ask these kids anything." And I said, as a person who's supervising them, I'm just going to have them implement their Fifth Amendment right and not say anything to you. Yeah, his wonderful words were, "Oh, another YouTube lawyer." They kept changing the goalpost. It became a thing. If they have nothing, the old thing. If you have nothing to hide, you should see. Just trampling the Fourth Amendment right. Didn't really care. The whole thing came up like, I don't care what you say. I don't care what the law says. And the only thing I had that day was my uncle Pete in my ear, who's my bishop, my mother in my ear, the Constitution, and prayer. That's the only thing I had that day.
Thank you, dear brother, for being a remarkable human being. Put up the picture for a mask. The only entity outside of the law that day were those ICE agents. Let me explain. You have no reasonable suspicion that you can articulate. Thus, you have no probable cause to engage or detain. You are thus interacting illegally with the minor without the benefit of counsel, which the Supreme Court has ruled that is a flat out no-no. Where else you want to go with it? Youman Wilder was defending his players from ICE agents according to the root. Mr. Wilder, New York City baseball coach, was willing to put his life on the line to protect his young players in the face of danger when ICE agents approached a group of his kids during practice. Mr. Wilder is the founder of Harlem Baseball Hitting Academy, stepped up in a major way. In an interview on MSNBC's Deadline White House, Wilder said he instructed his kids not to respond to armed agents who approached them at a park on New York City's Upper West Side. Quote, "I heard them saying, 'Where are you from? Where are your parents from?' And I just stepped in and said, 'This is very inappropriate to ask these kids anything,'" he told the host, Nicolle Wallace. Quote, "I'm just going to have them implement their Fifth Amendment right, not say anything to you." The coach said he was disappointed that bystanders in the area didn't do anything to protect the children. That's because they're feckless cowards, coach. They ain't like you. They ain't like you, brother. To protect the children during their confrontation with ICE agents, calling them cowards. But for him, doing nothing was not an option. He told CNN, "I just said to myself, I'm willing to die to make sure you get home," he added. "The only thing I had that day was my Uncle Pete, who's my bishop, my mother in my ear, the Constitution, and prayer." Isn't it ironic? Isn't it ironic that he has in his repertoire of moral tools the same things MAGA swears they have in theirs? The Constitution, God, prayer, their mama, their bishop, their preacher. But see, they don't bear the fruit like this brother does. I believe him. I believe he's authentic when he says, "These are the only things I had with me: my family, prayer, my bishop, and the Constitution." That's what it looks like. Wilder's youth baseball program has been a vital resource in the community for over 20 years. He's well known, nurturing the love and talent for the sport in Black and brown kids. In addition to helping nearly 400 kids get into college, 45 of his players have been picked up by Major League Baseball teams. 45 of his players are Major League Baseball talented. But since the incident, Wilder says attendance at his practice has dropped dramatically. That was their plan. As the children and their families are afraid they'll be targeted again. Quote, "We usually carry during the summer between 11 and 15 kids, and we're having one kid show up at practice right now," he said. Linda Rosenthal, New York Assembly member who represents Upper West Side, mentioned the ICE agents descending upon kids in a newsletter. Quote, the only thing that stood between those kids in Riverside Park and the Florida Detention Center buried deep in the Everglades was a brave coach who knew the law. Rosenthal wrote, first reported by I Love the Upper West Side. Quote, each one of us has the power to make a difference right now in our own backyards. Thank you, Coach, for saying something. You know, it's sad. You got to think about the level of extreme disregard for not only the law or rule of law, but the extreme disregard for humanity. This was a program making a difference. Maybe it was targeted because it makes a difference. Wouldn't that be so sad? And instead of engaging in the exacting investigative work that you are hired to engage in, you choose to manipulate children, trying to make it easier for yourself, whatever it may be. It's insane to me. Dear brother, stories like this make my blood boil because there is no operation of good faith at any level of this.
Yeah, they're blood boiling. They're inspiring to see someone like this actually step in and do it. I know that I'm in Los Angeles here, and there's been similar instances. Obviously, going for kids is just the next level, I think. But we have a park that's like right down the street, and recently it's just been incredibly empty. And I think that's very similar to these kids who just now aren't showing up practice. Going from 11 to 15 to 1 is not just a reduction in the amount of people playing. That's no one playing. Who's the kid going to play with at that point? And I think that when people cheer on these ICE agents, they don't realize that it's actually perpetuating the political isolation that we have in this country right now. Like we are so in our own homes constantly, and it is so much neighbor turning against neighbor. And all this does is just reinforce that because people won't leave their house now. And it's, I think, going to have a negative impact on communities all over the country.
Well said, dear brother. And we're going to start following stories like this more because obviously these are the ones we know about. There are others we do not, but we want to.